with the roster size, the scholarships going to 105 as proposed for the 2025-26 school year, it does kind of come into focus how I wouldn't say that Ohio State has taken some middle of the road type players, but they are loading up on some what I would consider depth pieces in this 2025 class. I mean, it's the number one class, but it's also got a few guys who have committed recently who are a little farther down the line in the national rankings. And I love, Ben Buckeye fan from Bexley who chimes in and goes, "It's great we took this kid, but screws up our ranking." It's like, Jesus criminy, people. He's a human being. Don't just reduce him to his recruiting ranking and say he has no worth. So, but, that's the world we live in with these folks. So, any rate, it to me, I think they probably are going to take 30 or 35 players if they're able to help fill out that roster. And then I think they've got to go into the transfer portal after this season. When you're going to be like Michigan a year from now, not a cheater, but only having 5 starters coming back off the previous year, you're going to have to go hard into the transfer portal to get veterans who can come in and help you win right away. So that's if there was ever a year where the roster could go from 85 to 105 with scholarships, I'd say for Ohio State, this is a good year for it.
Well, Ryan Day even talked about it at media days about how they are taking more 3-star guys, and he's not saying that, but developmental players. But it's because of NIL, where you can't pay everybody like they're a top 200 players. So you don't have the salary cap basically, so you have to go and get some developmental guys that aren't asking for $120,000 who will take the scholarship and will spend a couple of years developing. And do those have to be mostly Ohio kids? Maybe. But you're going to see more and more of that with the expansion to a 105, and I'm expecting a class of like 28 before anything shifts. And I just wonder, what is the first? And this is something I wanted to ask Ryan Day. Like, what is that first full recruiting class going to look like in the 105? Is it, because it doesn't seem like, I don't know if it's going to be this class, as Steve is alluding to. Like, I don't know how much of it is going to be this class, or how much is it going to be next class, and how much of these new 20 spots do they want to be on average high school versus transfer portals? Because you still have to build the culture, keep the culture, and you can't bring in necessarily 15 new players from other colleges that you've vetted as best you can in the span of 4 days, basically, because you have no time in the portal. Everything has moved so fast. So they're still going to want to bring in mostly high school kids, but with the freedom of movement, you're always going to have pits in your roster that you can fill through the portal. I just wonder what that first recruiting class is going to look like when they're at 105, when they have the ability. I assume it's going to be the largest class in Ohio State history since the Woody Hayes days, since they put in restrictions. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they have like a class of 35 or 40 in the next 2 years or so.
And to answer Brian Bexley from Brecksville, or whomever he is, in theory, that talks about weighing down the recruiting rankings, I think if we went through the last 10 or 15 years of recruiting rankings and went through every class and went through those players who weighted down the overall ranking, I think we would have a pretty good list of players, I think.
Well, just go look at the, and I can maybe bring it up here, the 2012 Ohio State recruiting class, or the 2012 Ohio State recruiting class, where, and I'll just bring up the 24/7. And this was a class that mostly Urban Meyer was saddled with, but you would call it more gifted with after the fact, when you got Pat Elflein, Michael Thomas returning from Fork Union. He was not highly rated. Jacoby Boren, not highly rated. Tyvis Powell, not highly rated. Cardale Jones was coming back from Fork Union as well. So there are some guys that probably wouldn't have had offers from Ohio State that Urban Meyer stuck with because they were committed. And you're going to have that in most classes if you just scroll to the bottom of it. And it's always fascinating because Georgia has guys that are, bottom of the barrel as well, because you have to fill out your class, but also because you trust your scouting and you don't recruit necessarily off of scouting, off of internet sites. You recruit off of, your own, what you've seen and your own scouting department, because those are the guys that you trust, that you're there with every day, that have a track record. So there's going to be guys that are in state that you can get, and you feel like, well, we can develop them. Some years, some guys wouldn't get an offer. Some years they would because of desperation or lack of numbers. So every year is fluid, but every year you're going to find guys towards the bottom of the class that that pan out much better. Like Kyle Dotson, you're looking right there. That was a huge get for Urban Meyer. That was a late get. Committed to Ohio State over, I think, Wisconsin on signing day. It's still legendary, and he never played. Savon Pittman, a huge get from Michigan State, and never played. Tommy Shutt, 5-star defensive tackle who played quite a bit but never lived up to his 5-star defensive tackle. These are all guys that Urban Meyer came in and landed after he got here. And Noah Spence being another one of those guys, I think in the 2013 class, maybe the 2012 class. Very, very good, but did not stay a Buckeye for long. And so, Armani Reeves, another one, Cameron Williams, stole them from Penn State, really never panned out. Briante down, another one from there, all towards the top of the class. So there's a reason why this is not a science, and it's mostly guesswork. And the NFL is still 50% on drafting quarterbacks in the first round, because there's no such thing as a sure thing other than Jeremiah Smith.
Taylor Decker did not have a national rank in this class.
These are faulty rankings somewhat, because he was like a 4-star guy, but he may not have been in like the top 250. And now
I think some of the old rankings have been scrubbed from the site for some reason. I can't, because I went back to look at some stuff. Speaking of Taylor Decker, he's a $20 million a year offensive lineman in the National Football League. Congratulations to him. Goodness gracious.
A guy that Ohio State had to offer after Urban Meyer came in with Ed Warner, because they didn't offer him before that. They didn't think he was good enough at that point.
Outside of Adolphus Washington, the top of the class might as well have been the bottom of the class. Look at the first 6 players. Interesting.
And trivia note, Devin Bogard, the first Ohio State Buckeye to ever lose his black stripe.
Oh,
wow. That's amazing.
You never cease to amaze me, Tony.
The more you know.
The more you know.